What is up, guys? Back again here after week 3 of the preseason, the dress rehearsal. How did Baker Mayfield do? How did this defensive line look once they were fully healthy and fully out there? Well, watch this video. You'll find out. All right, so the third preseason game has came and went, which means we are full steam ahead for the season because we know nothing goes down in the fourth preseason game, or more than likely nothing is going to go down in the fourth preseason game. So we are full steam ahead for the season. So let's look at what we learned. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is the worst thing in this game. And that was the offense. Now, there's a big asterisk with this performance because there was no Odell Beckham, there was no Jarvis Landry, there was no David Njoku, there was no Nick Chubb. So Baker Mayfield was out there, but he was out there with pretty much the entire second team outside the offensive line, which there's a lot to say about. But overall, the offense looked sloppy. A lot of guys dropping balls, a lot of penalties. Baker even missing a couple of throws. Just didn't look like everybody was on the same page. It didn't look as connected as they did on that first preseason game. Heck, it didn't even look as connected as some of those wide receivers looked with Garrett Gilbert in the last preseason game. So just overall, pretty sloppy, kind of hard to watch out there. Now, Baker did throw a lot of good balls that just were dropped, but he also did miss a couple of throws. And I think it's just you were missing Odell, you were missing David Njoku, and you were missing Jarvis Landry, and those are your three playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. And without them, nobody made plays. Rashard Higgins struggled a little bit, made a few good grabs, but also dropped a couple ones that we normally see him come down with. But he didn't look bad by any reach, but he just didn't look as good as we have expected to see him. So just a tad bit disappointing there too with Rashard Higgins, who we expect to have a good year this year. I think the other thing we discovered is that behind David Njoku, there are no tight ends on this team that are worth keeping. Seth DeValve has yet to show anything. Demetrius Harris has yet to show anything. Farrell Brown has yet to show anything. I think we might end up looking at the waiver wire to get our backup tight end, or at least to get a guy who's more in line, because I don't know if we can rely on any of these guys behind David Njoku. Maybe Demetrius Harris. I haven't seen him get a lot of targets, but what I have seen of him has not been impressive at all. And the offensive line looked kind of shaky too. They looked better in pass protection. They looked like they had their stuff together better in pass protection. But still, a couple of pressures were given up. One of them was given up by Eric Kush. Baker did have to run. He was hit a little bit more than we would like to see in a third preseason game. Had to get out of the pocket, had to break out a little bit more than what we are used to seeing. Overall, maybe they had a down week after the hard week of practice with Indy. And they just kind of had a little bit of a down week this week in practice, and things just weren't usual. But for whatever reason, the offensive side of the ball looked a little bit lackadaisical. They looked tired. They just didn't look good, that first team unit. And they really looked bad when it came to run blocking. Again, the whole preseason, really, they have not looked like they were great at run blocking, but this game in particular, they weren't. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers do have Ndamukong Suh, and I saw that give trouble to the interior defensive line, both in pass protection and in run blocking. So that is something to keep an eye on. Is that just something that was happening because of a bad weeks of practice, or is that going to be a bigger problem down the line? How is this offensive line going to hold up? There's a huge question mark there that needs to be answered, and another question mark at tight end. All right, the next side of the ball, not really a side of the ball, but phase of the game that we're going to talk about is the special teams unit. And finally, there is good things to say about the special teams unit. Let's talk about with what killed us the most last year. No, not field goals, but awful special teams tackling. Has not really been existent this year in the preseason. I think our Darius Taylor, the linebacker we signed from Tampa Bay, actually, is making a huge difference on that side of the ball. And I think he's going to really be a strong contributor in special teams. They made a lot of tackles. They made a lot of stops. They looked really solid out there on special teams with the first unit. The Browns, while they had these starters out, tried out two different punt returners, Dearness Johnson and Dontrell Hilliard. Both of them looked solid, look like they're not going to be a liability back there, but none of them look like they were going to be game changers at punt returner either, which I'm fine with. I think, if you got a guy who could just return a punt and make sure the ball gets to the quarterback safe, that's more important when you have a good quarterback and a good offense like the Browns project to have once they have all their starters out there. So I'm completely fine with one of those two returning punts because they look dependable back there, at least to just field the ball. Seibert in the first half of this game looked really good. Nailed field goals from all three areas of the field. Made a long 54-yarder, made 2 short field goals. Looked a lot better than what we've expected out of Seibert, and especially what we've heard out of Seibert out of camp. Still don't trust it, but he did look good in the first half of this game, so I have to give him his pat on the back. Now let's talk about the star of the show this game, and that is the defense. And there are 2 words to describe what this defense did, particularly this defensive line. That is dominate and terrorize. They dominated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line, and they terrorized Jameis Winston throughout the first half of this football game. Myles Garrett only played in 1 series with this team. So for 1 series, we saw the whole defense healthy, everybody out there except for TJ Carey. But everybody out there, whole defense, and boy, that's a good defense. When Myles Garrett is out there, this thing, it's borderline unfair to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because there was one play where both Myles and Olivier Vernon just exploded off the edge, and Jameis Winston had no shot of making any type of positive play at all in that situation. Then you add Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi getting consistent, good, solid pressure up the middle, and then guys like Joe Schobert and Christian Kirksey who can slide in there to blitz and just take advantage of the double teams that Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson, and Olivier Vernon are commanding. And you have something that looks very, very effective, very, very scary, and very, very hard to game plan around. This defensive line looked really good, and I think Christian Kirksey and Joe Schobert also showed why they're the starting linebackers of this team. Much talk has been of Mac Wilson, Sione Takitaki as well, but he's been out for a few weeks. But hey, Christian Kirksey and Joe Schobert are out to show that they are the starters on this team. And I think Joe Schobert was really impressive on the tight end. O.J. Howard did not kill us, did not hear his name really be called all game, because Joe Schobert really did lock him down, made some great plays, made some great pressures. Joe Schobert, all around good football player. I think people are really going to learn to appreciate Joe Schobert at the end of this season. I think he might even be a Pro Bowler at the end of this season. I'm really high on Joe Schobert. He's going to make a good amount of money. Hopefully he stays with the Browns because this is the last year of his rookie deal. But really, really impressive things that I'm seeing out of Joe Schobert. Denzel Ward played today and really didn't get to see much of him in coverage, as Jameis Winston kind of stayed away from Denzel Ward. He did break up a pass early in the game, but made 2 really good plays out of coverage that really impressed me. One was a run play that he made sure he strung outside in order to let a linebacker catch up onto the running back, which was really impressive. Also, another play that he did was when he came in as a free runner on a blitz and was able to kind of create more pressure, and actually I think he got the sack there. Again, the Browns had like maybe 6 sacks in the first half of this game, so really impressive stuff on this defensive side of the ball. And I think another guy who is underrated in this defense is Chris Smith, because even when Myles Garrett left after that first series, they were still able to create consistent pressure. Chris Smith makes really good plays on that defensive line. He's not going to get a bunch of sacks, but he is very, very solid as an edge rusher in this 4-3 defense. I am very glad that the Browns signed him last offseason. Very underrated signing, but he is a really, really good guy to have in there as a backup pass rusher, and maybe be a complement to a guy like Jannard Avery, who's going to back up the other side of that line, or Anthony Zettel. And speaking of the pass rush, Olivier Vernon looked as advertised, looked like the guy that we traded for. He is giant. He looks like the Incredible Hulk out there in pads. Like, he has some giant arms, and he is able to push back. I mean, he just was terrorizing the other team's right tackle. And him and Myles Garrett on both sides of the football almost every play. Man, that is going to be something. And then when they can give those guys a break and throw out a guy like Chris Smith and a guy like Jannard Avery, this team has so much depth on that defensive line. It's ridiculous. I mean, imagine if they would have signed Mike Daniels or Gerald McCoy and they have this kind of depth. It's insane. So that front seven looks really good. Looks like it's going to keep the Browns in a lot of games this season. But that is my overall impressions for this week of the preseason. Lot of really strong stuff out of the defensive line. Lot of strong stuff out of special teams. I kind of disappointed with what the offense gave us. But again, we haven't really seen this offense without Odell, without Jarvis, and without David Njoku. So we have no idea what they're going to look. But if they can look as good as that defense has, or even better, oh my gosh, this Browns team might be hype worthy, as those in the national media have deemed them not hype worthy. But ooh, they look good. So that's my impressions of this preseason game. What are yours? Leave them in the comment section down below. Do you think that you saw enough out of the front seven to think that this can be an elite front seven in the NFL? Do you think that you're worried about the offensive line and some of the woes that they've been having early on when they've been playing? What are you worried about with this team? What are you not worried about with this team? Let me know in the comment section down below. But hey, if you like what I do here, if you like the videos that I put up, if you like this channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. And I do upload a lot during the football season. Also, if you want to help the show out, you can help us out in two giant ways. You can buy some merch, or you can join the Patreon. Either way is deeply appreciated. If you join the Patreon, you get your name on the bottom of the screen. If you buy some merch, you get some of the coolest t-shirts known to man. So either way, you can't lose. You help the show. You help support this thing that you like to watch. So please, please, please consider it. I would appreciate it greatly. But that is it for this week's video. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.